Okay, in this lesson here, what we're going to do is take a look at sub-actions. All the way up to this point, we've seen the scene manager, we've seen how the scene manager contains actions, and now with actions, each action can have a series of sub-actions. Kind of, you can think of it like this, kind of the sub-action is the last piece of the entire matinee puzzle, okay? So we've got the last scene that we created. Let's go ahead and come in here, open Matinee back up. We've got our scene manager selected. Let's come over here to action. And you saw that we have two different types of actions that we can create. We can create action pause, and we can create action move camera. Now, if I come over here to sub-actions, you'll see that we've got quite a few different things that we can create. And what I want to do is go ahead and create, let's just say, a couple of the more popular ones first, just so that you can see how we would go about creating them. Then I want to come back in here and we'll just go through each of these and tell you what they do. For the simple fact that some of these could take a while to get into making a scene that would really make sense in regards to using the specific sub-action effect. Okay?
Makes sense.
So let's go ahead and switch back over to actions for a second so that I can explain this. Basically, you need to make sure that you have the action selected that you want to assign the sub-actions to.
That's right. The sub-actions will start as soon as their associated action is hit.
Exactly. So if I had, let's say, some sort of, let's come back over here to sub-actions, and sub-action trigger. If I wanted to broadcast or trigger an event at a specific point inside my matinee scene, then let's say, in fact, when we, let's go ahead and scroll down a little bit, right here after the camera pauses, or right when the camera pauses, perhaps I want to trigger some sort of explosion or some other effect in the scene, then I would need to come down to this action, select it, come over here to sub-actions, and then in that particular case come down and add the sub-action trigger to it, and then set up what I need it to do. And as Logan was just saying a second ago, this sub-action will not get fired until we actually get down here and hit that action.
So this makes a great tool for setting up timing to other things in the map.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and start out here at the very beginning. So I'm going to select the very first action. Come over here to sub-actions. And what I want to do is simply fade in. Okay? So fortunately for us, if I click on the Add New Sub-Action, you will find a sub-action fade. Okay, so we'll go ahead and add that in. And now let's come down here, and B fade out is currently set to true. Okay, so do we want to fade out? Now we're starting out, we want to fade in. Okay, so let's go ahead and set this from true to false. Of course, you can just double click on it if you'd like. And the fade color, we'll go from black into the current color of the viewport. Of course, you do have the ability to come in here and change the color to whatever you'd like. Now the time. We have delay and duration, and you're going to find delay is going to become a very important property when dealing with all of these sub-actions. Basically, it's you have the ability to delay a specific sub-action from happening so many seconds.
That's right. If the action doesn't occur at the exact time you need, you may need to delay it. Say, for example, as soon as we hit one of our pauses, but a second after the pause do something, we would set a delay of 1.
Well, here's another thing to point out as well. In regards to the actions, basically we go through one action, then we hit the next action, then we hit the next action, so on and so forth. Up other sub-actions, does it work like that?
No, it's they all get hit all at the same time based on when their action is hit.
That's right. And because of that, we may need to go in there and delay things. If I wanted to, right now, I'm actually fading in, and let's go ahead and set a duration of 4 seconds. If I wanted to, I could go ahead and add a fade out on this very first action, but delay it for whatever the length of. If I come back over here, 18 seconds. Let's say I want to go ahead and shave off perhaps 2 seconds. So I could go in. Here's an example. I could come back over here. I could take this sub-action. I could go ahead and duplicate it and then fade out false. Let's go ahead and say true, so that will indeed fade out. And I can say delay this thing for, let's say, 16 seconds, and then I want to have it fade out over a duration of 2. Now, both of these sub-actions have been assigned to the very first action. In fact, with this action, you can see the S over here indicating that there are sub-actions. So we did not have to put that fade out on the very last one.
Right. The sub-actions stay in effect even after their action has passed.
Exactly. So we could be going down here, and this other one was still paused or delayed until it was time for it to execute. So if we come back in here right now, take a look at our matinee preview, go ahead and hit play. Check this out. Fading in. And, of course, real quick, we're just going to kind of bounce all over the level, so give it just a second. Okay, snap and starting to move. And we're looking for fade out again, coming around towards the end. And here we go. Look at that. Nice, neat 2-second fade out. So we have the ability to do that, or let's go ahead and switch back over here to sub-actions. I can take this one all together if I wanted to and simply delete it out, come back over here to actions, and perhaps I may want to come down here to the very last one. And let's just go ahead and set it to 3 seconds, since this last leg is 3 seconds as well. So I'll just simply select it, come to sub-actions, and then come in here and add the sub-action fade. Do we want to fade out? Yes, we do. To color block? Yes. Delay? None. We want this to happen when we actually hit this very last action. How long do we want it to take? Let's say 3 seconds. Okay? So at this point, if I was to play it, you'll see we'll have the exact same thing you saw just a second ago in the preview window.
The one nice thing about doing it this way is now the length of time between fades will adapt. If you go back and add more actions so that the total length is greater than 18 seconds, it'll still work just fine. You have the 3-second fade over the last action.
Right.
The other way, we had basically hard-coded in that it was going to be 18 seconds long, so even if we extended the whole scene more than 18 seconds,
it could potentially start fading out.
Will fade out before the scene's done.
Exactly. Very, very good point. So let's go ahead and come back over here to actions. So now that we've talked about fading, I'm going to come all the way back up here to the very first one. Let's go ahead and talk about one more very popular sub-action, and that is orientation. Okay? What's the point of orientation, Logan?
Adjust which way the camera's looking.
You got it. So
or
far,
actor that's stuck on the path.
Okay. So far, all the way up to this point, the only thing we've really done is simply have a camera that's always pointing down a path, right?
Unless we were at a pause and it wasn't pointing down anything.
Good point. So let's go ahead and introduce another sub-action, and this time around it's going to be the sub-action orientation. Okay? Now, with sub-action orientation, again, order doesn't matter over here because, as Logan said a second ago, they're all going to get fired at the same time. But we have up underneath orientation, we've got cam orientation, and then cam orientation over here. Look at that. By default, it's cam orient face path. Well, there you go. And we'll find several different orientations available here. But in this particular VTM, we're only going to be focusing on one. Interpolate is going to be a very important one. We're going to look at that one in VTM issue number 2 in regards to Matinee. But right now, what we're going to do is we're going to do look at actor. And when we use look at actor, then we have a setting look at. Who do we want to look at? So what I want to do is go ahead and switch back over here to Tools real quick and show you the Add Look Target. Now, we could select any actor and use that as the reference point that we're going to take the camera and aim at, right?
Right, you can look at any actor.
Now, the problem with that is, let's say that you have something that, well, the problem is it doesn't really stand out, whatever you're looking at. And we've got the ability to come in here and add kind of a bullseye or an actual look target actor. Just, again, it being a bullseye, it kind of stands out a little easier to see.
Right, it's basically just a blank actor, and its only purpose is to be a point to look at. And the other thing about it being a bullseye is it's very easy to recognize in a level.
Absolutely. So what I've done is I've simply placed my camera where I want the look target to be, and now from Tools in Matinee, I'll simply come down to the middle button, Add Look Target. I'll click it. Looks like nothing happened. I'll simply back away, and there's my target. Okay? So now, with my target selected, it already is, I'll come back to Sub-Actions, and I'll come down to the Look At, and then simply click Use. Okay? So now, with that is what I'm going to be looking at. Now, here's an important thing to understand about the orientation sub-action, and that is the camera is now going to be orientated towards this, and it's going to stay orientated toward this until it reaches another sub-action with another orientation telling it to look or orient in some other way.
Right. Orientation stays in effect until you explicitly change it.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and just do a quick preview.
Sure. Just one other point I had is the fact that you can have any actor other than a look target. That is cool when you need to look at something that moves. Say look at a mover.
Good point.
And then you have a very dynamic camera because the camera will always look at where the mover is no matter where it is on the path. So you can come up with some dynamic shots using that.
Absolutely. So we'll go ahead and come in here and hit play. Look at this. It's going to fade in, and now we're looking down around our arena. Kind of a strange place to stop, but that's all right. Look at this. We snap around over here. We're still looking back into the arena, and we continue to do that all the way back around, and there comes our 2-second fade out.
So now I've added a point of focus for the movie.
Absolutely. So if we wanted to at this point, you know that, let's go ahead and come back over here to Actions. You know that we come around to there, and then we're going to pause right here. and then we do a camera snap down here. So if I wanted to, I could come down to this point, and from here I could go ahead and come back into sub-actions and tell it, look, let's go ahead and do another orientation, and then simply come up under cam orientation and face path again. So now we'll be facing down the path once we snap back over to this back area. Actually, shoop, back over here.
Okay, so go back to...
Let's jump in here and take a look. So here we are. We're looking down at some sort of action sequence that may be taking place in the arena. Now when we snap, we're going to be looking back down the path, and we'll stay that way, of course, until we hit another sub-action orientation, which we're not going to. Pink. Okay, so you can see how these sub-actions are grouped to, or belong to, if you will, specific actions, and more importantly, that all sub-actions within a particular action, when that action is hit, all sub-actions are triggered at the exact same time. Okay, so we have to use the delay to offset them. So with that, Logan, I guess we could go ahead and spend just 1 second and just talk about the remaining ones, and I think that'll pretty much wrap this up. So we've got scene speed and we've got game speed. Go ahead.
Okay, well, scene speed controls the speed of execution just for this current scene manager.
Right.
Meaning that if you were to, say you were watching a rocket through a matinee scene, and then you use the scene speed to slow down the camera, the rocket would continue at its normal speed. Only the camera would slow down, or camera or anything else being affected by the scene manager.
Right.
Game speed will slow down everything in the game. So if you use game speed to slow down the camera, and we're watching a rocket, the rocket would slow down too.
So the rocket impacts something, there's an explosion, or there's particles or whatever, and we want to give a nice slow-mo effect.
Right, you can trigger a game-wide slow-mo using game speed.
Very cool. All right, we've already looked at orientation. Camera shake is just that, camera shake. In fact, I actually pointed that out. If you think about it, all the way back in the intro lesson of this VTM, there are several areas in the intro movie file that they use camera shake. Okay? Field of view.
And you can use that to just modify the camera's field of view. Obviously, you have to be using a camera or the not affect actor for this to be noticeable.
Exactly.
Change the field of view of the camera as it's going along the path.
That's it. Then we've got action trigger. Simple enough. We want to trigger something.
Right. So you can
broadcast out.
And the delay gets useful there if you need to time past just the current action. You have a delay and what event you're going to trigger.
Exactly. And then we've got action fade we've already taken a look at. And then finally camera effect.
Okay, this has two different effects it can use. One is to overlay a texture or material onto the camera you're looking through. And this can be useful if you needed to, say, for example, you wanted to have a mock-up HUD for your movie. You could create a special material to be used with it and overlay it onto the camera. One thing to keep in mind is you need to make sure you control the transparency in that material. The other thing you can do with the camera effect is set up motion blur.
Okay, as a matter of fact, while you're talking about it, I'll just come down here and add one, camera effect.
So under camera effect, there you have whether you want overlay or motion blur.
Okay.
So using either of those, and those, here's one interesting thing about both of those, is they will stay in effect even after the movie ends. So you need to make sure it times out or you hit something else to turn it off.
Very good. Okay, so that's sub-actions, and with that, I mean, we could, let's go ahead and kill that one out, and let's just execute this one time just to see what we've created.
Okay.
Okay, Unreal Tournament 2003 is now currently loading. Very good. And let's go ahead and get into the game.
Play.
And where do we have that guy at? And here we go. So look at this. Nice fade in. Very cool with the music. Ta-da! There you go. So let's go ahead and jump out of this. And at this point, really, you know, we've kind of taken you through the basics of Matinee. What we want to do for wrapping up this VTM is go ahead and have a series of smaller lessons now to where we're going to go in and actually create a very simple scene. In fact, the scene that you saw in the intro where we've got the two fighters and one kicks the other and knocks her down and it says, "Oh yeah." Okay? So that's going to conclude this lesson. Thanks.